Welcome back to the Matt Return podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Allen.
And I'm Kaleb Boyer.
And we're back in a much better studio than last week.
Oh, yeah.
But more importantly, Penn State sees some better competition this weekend. I know they just had the shutout over Indiana last week, but on Friday they'll wrestle Michigan and Michigan State on the road. I know you'll be there for the Michigan match at least. But yeah, it's a road trip to your hometown.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'm actually excited to cover it in person. It's a lot better than obviously. I'm just watching it on TV, so pretty excited. And then I don't know if you mentioned it, but Indiana was ranked, so I just wanted to throw it out there. So they are facing better teams now, but
yeah. I'll be watching it remote on Big Ten Network. But I think to start, before we look into Michigan State, I think we should reflect on the last dual meet last Sunday against Indiana. Penn State, to me, I think obviously the biggest takeaway for me was that not only did Penn State not allow a single team point, they didn't allow a single takedown. So, Kaleb, what was your biggest takeaway from that? It could be the same thing as mine or anything else that you wanted to add.
Well, just a thought on that. Like, even until right after the match, I hadn't even realized it. I mean, obviously, as dominant a performance as you can have, you not giving up a single takedown, it doesn't get much more. I mean, unless you're pinning every single opponent, but even then, overall, I think we learned a lot about the two true freshmen. I know we've talked about it all year, but Kasich, and then Braden, they've just absolutely blown away expectations, I think. I mean, that's kind of my biggest takeaway. They're both ranked now.
Yeah.
And Cael Sanderson talked about it after the match. It sounds like they're probably going to burn the red shirts on both of them. He sounded a little more hesitant about Braden, but it sounds like that's the plan. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel like we come on here every week and talk about those two guys, but they really are just the most newsworthy aspect, I think, of this season so far. And I feel like that just stems from the rest of the lineup just being as stacked as it is. But yeah, like you said, I really don't think like you can get any more dominant than that, other than, if you put up a perfect 60-0 performance. I don't know the last time Penn State has done that where they haven't let up a takedown, but it was certainly just a feat. And I think part of the reason we didn't notice, I didn't notice either, didn't even hit my mind, is I think we've gotten kind of used to Penn State just, destroying teams like this. Maybe not a shutout like 46-0, but I mean, even against Oregon State, who was a much better team than Indiana, they were on pace for another shutout before the upset at 184 pounds. And I just think it's just a testament to Penn State wrestling as a whole. But like you mentioned earlier, the two freshmen, Braden Davis and Tyler Kasich, they've been underdogs this season, and they still will be this weekend against Michigan, maybe a little bit. But they're not some unranked, young guys that are just trying to get an upset here and there. They're now top 15, both of them. Both of them could, with wins this weekend, enter the top 10. So, I really don't even think coming into the season we expected to see all 10 ranked, and especially not after Shane Van Ness went down. So I guess what do you kind of just think of that all 10 wrestlers finally entering the rankings?
I think that it's a huge accomplishment for Cael, obviously. Like you mentioned, Shane goes down, and we're all of a sudden looking at are they going to qualify 10? I mean, 125 was already kind of a question mark, but now it seems like they could All-American 10. I mean, we were talking about that preseason, they could All-American 10, and then Robbie comes out of the gate, he's super struggling, but I really think that it's possible again. I mean, you don't redshirt assuming they don't redshirt the two guys, they might redshirt.
Hmm.
We're looking at a very solid squad, and I don't know if the breaking the point record's on the table, but I mean, at this rate, anything's possible. I'd say.
I think we'll get more of a taste of whether that's possible, especially after Friday. That both of them have taken down ranked wrestlers before. Kasek has done it in back-to-back matches, but I think the two Wolverines that they're going to be facing up against specifically, Braden Davis will be wrestling Northwestern transfer Michael DiAgostino, who's been an All-American. Kasek will wrestle Austin Gomez, who's also been an All-American. They're both top 10. I think DiAgostino's 5th and Gomez is 6th or something around there. So they're set to, wrestle another step up in competition. And, Kasek's already number 12. Braden's already number 14. But, there's still maybe more to see with those guys. So I'm really excited for this weekend.
I think there's definitely more to show from both of them. You're looking at, excuse me. Sorry. I was thinking of Starachi's comments earlier during the press conference right after the game, or right after the match, where he talked about Josh Barr. But I just think that it's very impressive that you have, actually 3 true freshmen that wrestled last week, and they all got bonus point victories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you could even throw Mitchell Messenbrink in there. Had a little bit of a stutter, but he only wrestled 2 college matches last season, and he's now in the top 10 after starting out, I think, like around 16th. So really, like you said, it's I just assume in a sport like wrestling, where you can go against a guy who's legitimately like 25 years old, being an 18-year-old kid would take some adjustments, because they're literally wrestling grown men, and not just 21-year-old college grown men. Like, these guys can get significantly outside the traditional college years. And so when you see these young guys do this, it's just, I mean, we saw it with Levi last season, and I feel like maybe that's the reason he specifically maybe didn't win the national championship, because Austin O'Connor was just so experienced. He'd been there before. But, yeah, it's just, and especially when you're looking just past this year too, like next year and the year after, these guys still have all this eligibility left, and it's especially at 125 pounds. I think this has been kind of what Penn State fans have been looking for and hoping for since 2016, when Megaludis won the last national championship at that weight class. So yeah, I think Michigan is really more the test rather than Michigan State. Michigan's whole lineup is ranked, as is Penn State's, whereas Michigan State's, they have a few guys here and there, one top 10 guy. But on Friday specifically, what are you looking for from Penn State?
Well, you have a team that's ranked up and down the lineup. I don't expect a lot. I don't expect really any upsets. Penn State's going to run away with this one. I mean, we can all predict that. But like you said, the young guys, how they perform at 125, that's a weight that's completely wide open this year. You have a lot of the traditional guys are gone now, no lead, no glory. It's completely wide open. So I definitely want to see what they have at 125 long term with Braden. And then Messenbrink, thinking about the MSU duel, 9 versus 10, I'd really like to see that. Could be a big indicator of whether or not we're looking at an All-American campaign from them. He's probably going to All-American them, if we're being honest. He's only 9 now, but the rankings going into the tournament don't really matter.
It's also still really early into the season. We still have a couple months of wrestling left. But you said a runaway against Michigan. You mean like a huge blowout like we've seen like
I
against
mean, like
Oregon
a
State?
healthy win.
Okay. So
I
what
mean,
would you
what?
categorize
How
that
much?
as?
Almost half the lineups ranked number one,
Yeah, it's like 4, I think.
and everyone's top 15.
Yeah.
Um, they have, I think their lowest guy's 14, and I think it's Braden.
It is.
Um, yeah,
I mean, we
Bernie's
can
5,
go up and
Aaron's
down the
4.
lineup. We can go up and down the lineup and give our predictions if you wanted to. I feel like that would be a good thing to do.
Okay.
Just for this one, it's not often you have two teams wrestle each other with a fully ranked lineup.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
So we'll just start from the top because that's, presumably where it's going to start. Number 14, Braden Davis, and number 5, Michael DiAgostino. Who are you picking and why for that one?
I think that DiAgostino is going to win this one, but I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think it's going to be kind of telling, like maybe Braden's not quite there yet, but he will get there, like maybe later this season or next season even.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that that's a weight that Northwestern's probably going to pick up. I wouldn't be shocked at an upset. I wouldn't be like over the moon shocked, but
Yeah, I think it'll be DiAgostino by decision there. Should put Michigan up 3-0. Then next up, it's Aaron Nagao and Dylan Ragusin at 133 pounds. Number 4 and number 6 going up against each other.
I think this is going to be another close win by decision for Aaron.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like tied 3-3.
Yeah, I think most of these lighter weights, at least in the first half, are going to be, the closer ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I think Aaron's going to win, and it will be close. I mean, Ragusin is used to wrestling Roman Bravo Young when he wrestles Penn State, but now there's kind of a change. And, I forgot who we talked to. He said once Aaron kind of takes you down and gets on top of you, it took him I think it was Bo, if I remember correctly, at last week's media. He said it took him 3 minutes to get up or something like that. Speaking of Bo, moving on, Bo Bartlett and Sergio Lemley at 141 pounds. I think Bo's going to win, but I think it's going to be close as a usual Bo Bartlett match. I mean, just against Indiana, it came down to the wire there.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is like you look at a matchup on paper, you're looking at like a 2 versus a guy in the 20s, and you're like, oh, he's going to blow him away. But I think you're right. It's probably going to be by decision unless he gets some back points late like he did this past weekend. So I think we're looking at a decision there too. So you're talking, what was that?
We're at
6-3.
6-3 Penn State. I think that one could even go into sudden victory. And then the other true freshman that we've been talking about for 3 weeks now nonstop, Tyler Kasak against Austin Gomez at 149 pounds. I'm interested to hear this one.
I don't know because this is another one. I'm not going to say I'd be shocked at all if Kasich comes out, especially the way he's been wrestling, and picks up the win. But you know what? I'll predict the upset. I'll go one of the 2 true freshmen will get the upset this weekend.
I'm gonna go Austin Gomez, but I think, like you said, it's definitely possible, especially considering he just tech-falled the number 14 ranked wrestler at the weight class, at least at the time, as an unranked guy. So he's definitely capable. And then here we go. This is where, like I think you said earlier, the runaway happens. Levi Haynes against Will Lewan. I'm going to go Levi there. I think it's going to be on the border of a major decision, but I still think it'll be a decision.
Yeah, I might lean towards a major decision. I think he's been wrestling a little bit better since that hiccup a few weeks ago. Or what was it, 2 weeks ago now? 2.5
Oregon State, yeah.
Yeah, so
week and a half.
So I'm going by major decision, so that's 4. So I think I'm at
You're at 10-6. I'm at 9-6. And then after halftime, Mitchell Messenbrink and Cameron Amin.
I think I'm leaning Mitchell in this one.
I am too. Cameron Amine just lost, so I don't. He doesn't have the momentum right now. I think beating Mitchell could give him the momentum, but I don't know. Mitchell's been, I think, one of the you forget he's a redshirt freshman sometimes, and so
Well, I think Amin's also the wrestler that Facundo really
he
hit his
upset.
spotlight against, right? He upset him when he was like 8 or 9 or 5 or 6. He was
Yeah,
top 10.
yeah.
So
I remember that was last year. I
yep.
believe Facundo beat him in sudden victory as well, and then, I mean, I think I'll just lump in 3 of these next 4 weights in one: Carter Starachi, Aaron Brooks, and Greg Kirkfleet. 3 number ones in the last 4 weight classes. Do you see any of them losing?
Well, no, it's not by if they'll win, it's by how much.
Yeah, and
You know,
yeah, I really agree with you there. I think especially Aaron Brooks, that has potential to be really a huge blowout. I mean,
that could be a fall.
yeah, the 2 others are both number 4, Lucas Davison at heavyweight and Shane Griffith at 174 pounds. But I mean, Carter's on the longest active winning streak in Division I wrestling, and I really don't see how he's going to lose maybe to anybody. You know, even at the All-Star Classic, he beat Mekhi Lewis again. I just don't think.
Well, I think beating him is like kind of an understatement.
Yeah, I just don't think any of them are going to lose, which brings us to the last one, or our last one, Bernie Truax against number 15, Jaden Bullock, which, it could be a Michigan upset here.
I'm thinking that Bernie gets back in like a healthy form. I mean, he came out and lost against Oregon State. Presumably, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe they probably rested him, knowing this upcoming weekend he's facing 2 ranked guys.
Yeah.
He's ranked at, it's not an easy weekend for him, but I would expect him to get a bounce back win, probably by decision. I don't see him coming out and majoring a kid this weekend.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you there, which means I think Penn State sweeps the second half for both of us. So I guess I asked you about the runaway thing earlier, but I guess I agree with you there. And then, I mean, for Michigan State, I don't think we have to go through the whole lineup. I feel like that also could have upset potential. I think, like you said earlier, 165 pounds is really where it'll be close. And depending on if Penn State rests some guys for that one as well. But yeah, I think Penn State, again, is just going to keep increasing their win streak. I think it's at 48 dual meets now. And I really don't see anyone really getting in the Nittany Lions' way.
no, especially with obviously their biggest in-conference rival, Iowa. They had some of those suspension issues kind of, hindering their team this year. So that takes a lot of pressure. Not like there was any real pressure to begin with on the Nittany Lions, but yeah, you also mentioned it. Fish at 165, really the only notable matchup in the Michigan State duel, so they should rest probably a couple of guys. I don't think they'll send the full roster out.
Yeah, but that'll all be determined in the future. In the meantime, have a safe trip up to Michigan. Again, I'll be watching at home. But you can follow our coverage on Twitter at TDC_wrestling, as well as Kaleb and I on Twitter. And we'll be back next week for our next episode of the Matt Return podcast after a 2 dual meet weekend. So, peace.